taken from Yale University Library. Harmode, or the Mountain of the Assembly, a series of archaeological studies chiefly from the standpoint of cuneiform inscriptions, by Reverend O.D. Miller, Doctor of Divinity, member of the American Oriental Society. You can read all that if you feel like it. And we're going to page 113. So, if you've seen any of my other videos regarding Nabu, Antares, Nesu, Lisi, the Cabiri, in all of their various forms, the Apkallu, the Sabeti, the Corybantes, the Ameshaspenta, so on and so forth, the Anunnaki, right? I finally found direct references connecting Nabu, Eshmun, Nabu's temple, the Cabiri, and I'm starting to believe it. I'm extremely hard-pressed to believe that this is all a fucking coincidence. So, quote, we have introduced already some proofs of a nature quite conclusive that the Cabiri, as an organized priest class, were the chief constructors of the Pyramid of Borsippa, which is to say the Temple of Zeta, right, Nabu's tower, usually identified by cuneiform scholars with the original Tower of Babel. In addition to these proofs, it will be regarded as significant if we find that the Cabiric worship was actually connected with this very structure. In his account of the repairs of the Pyramid of Borsippa, which had been left in an unfinished state, Nebuchadnezzar says that he completed it to the top according to the original design. The restoration of it, as represented by Reverend G. Rawlinson, already cited on this point, shows 7 stages retreating one upon the other, whose different colors are interpreted by Assyriologists as denoting the 7 planets. Above all, constituting the 8th stage was the sanctuary of a cubical form, and this was dedicated especially to Nabu, or Mercury. The exact agreement and conception with this 8th stage, representing obviously the heaven of the fixed stars, with the character of the Phoenician Eshmun assimilated to the 8th celestial region, has been noticed by Dr. Movers and M. Lenormand, who see here an indication of the connection of the Cabiri with this temple structure. This conjecture is confirmed by the fact that Mercury himself, to whom the superior sanctuary was dedicated, that is, Nabu, right, was reckoned as one of the Cabiric divinities. Dr. Movers and Gesenius have shown that Mercury, or Hermes, under the names Cadmilus and Casmilus, was included among the Cabiric deities adored at Samothrace, whose mysteries were so celebrated in antiquity. But the indications are even more positive, as we shall see. The pyramidal temple of the Chaldeans, observes in Lenormand, was an imitation and artificial reproduction of the mythical mountain of the Assembly of the Stars, the Harmode of Isaiah, which sacred tradition placed in the north, and of which there is yet question in the sacred books of the Mandaeans, and that's that Gnostic sect of Christianity from at least the 1st century CE, still active today, that openly equate Nabu with Jesus, one-for-one equivalent. Go ahead and look it up, or just watch the videos that I've already posted. The author alludes here to the Diluvian mountain, identified traditionally with the sacred Mount of Paradise, first abode of humanity. It was directly from this Diluvian mountain that the founders of Babylon had journeyed when they came to the plains of Shinar, and undertook the building of the tower identified with that of Borsippa. Now this pyramid of Borsippa was mystically called Bit Zeta, Temple of the Right Hand. It was thus, according to M. Lenormand, just cited, an artificial Mount Ida, Mountain of the Hand. Now keep in mind what I've said before about Antares being called Masu, right, as in Mount Mashu, that mountain that Gilgamesh has to descend through. That's what they're talking about here. So Mount Ida, Mountain of the Hand, and it was with the Mount Idas of antiquity that the Cabiric worship and mysteries were especially associated. The same author describes minutely an ancient cylinder upon which a pyramid in stages is represented, with a colossal hand erected upon the upper stage, around which are grouped 8 personages, obviously intended for the 8 Cabiri, who, according to the mystical idea involved, are born from the hand. Like the Ideodactyls type stuff. The author has no doubt of the reference of this cylinder to the Tower of Borsippa, and it affords a complete explanation of the phrase Bit Zeta, Temple of the Right Hand, applied to it. The fact, then, of the primitive association of the Cabiri and the Cabiric cults with the Pyramid of Borsippa, and consequently with the Tower of Babel itself, is here clearly demonstrated. that the chief personages engaged in this construction were a temple craft, and that they possessed certain esoteric doctrines relative to the temple is quite apparent from the circumstances now familiar to us, and the data already established render it difficult to entertain serious doubts upon the matter. The 7 stages are the 7 degrees of the temple, corresponding to the 7 planetary orbits, and these are expressly compared by get this fucking dude's name, dude. M. Lenormand and Dr. Movers to the sons of the 7 sons of Sadiq, whose Cabiric character is well understood. Then, the 8th stage or degree, answering to the 8th celestial region, the heaven of the fixed stars, is not only dedicated to Mercury, one of the Cabiric deities, but is its direct connection with Eshman, the 8th son of Sadiq and the 8th Cabirius, has already been established. The pyramid itself is styled by Nebuchadnezzar the Temple of the 7 Lights of the Earth, a phrase whose mystical import, in connection with the 7 degrees of the structure itself, is apparent at a glance. In addition to these facts, we shall call to mind here the connection of Nimrod with this temple structure, to whom Nebuchadnezzar applies the phrase Pa-Teshi Tishri, or Sublime Master. Appropriating often the same title himself, the technical application of the term Pa-Tishi, or to the priest kings of Babylon on the one hand, and its identity with the word Pa-Teshi on the other, an ordinary designation of the Cabiric images, are points with which the reader is already familiar. Another circle of conceptions previously developed has an obvious connection with the subject matter now before us. Nabu, or Mercury. Nabu, or Mercury, is a Cabiric divinity, and the 8th stage of this tower, representing heaven, is especially dedicated to him. Nabu, or Mercury, is a Cabiric divinity, and the 8th stage of this tower, representing heaven, is especially dedicated to him. One of the monograms for Nabu is the sign Ak, to make, to build, etc., whose relation to the Akkadian Tak, stone or brick, as a substitute for stone, whose relation also to the Aryan Ak, from which are derived Akman, stone heaven, and Akten, 8, Aktama, the 8th, are points that have been fully illustrated. We see here certain mystical ideas, evidently originating in Central Asia, and around the mountain of the Assembly of the Stars, to which M. Lenormand alludes, ideas brought by the Kushite immigrants from the east to Babylon, and these re-embodied in an artificial mountain of degrees, in imitation of that from which they had journeyed. These ideas have obvious references to the temple, and they constitute a traditional doctrine of the templum. The various considerations that have been presented leave no doubt, as it appears to me, upon this important point. Another proposition is to be stated here. Not only had there been inherited by the Cabiri a traditional doctrine of the temple, but this doctrine had its basis for their theory of the cosmos and the creation of the world. In the first place, the Pyramid of Borsippa was designedly and strikingly a representation of the cosmos, or world. Its summit, or 8th stage, was a symbol of the heaven of the fixed stars. The 7 stages descending from thence represented the 7 planetary spheres, while the foundation was put for the earth. In this foundation was the sanctuary of the god Anu, or Anu, who has the mystical title of Susru the Founder. Okay, I think that covers what I'm getting at here. So, if you're not familiar with Nabu, I have a fucking hour-long video where I talked about this motherfucker already. And now he has been explicitly connected with, or I found rather, this is like damn near 200 years ago at this point, I found the explicit connection between Nabu, Casmilis, Cadmilis, Toth, Eshman, the Cabiri, so on and so forth. So, yep, there you go.